In the luxurious first-class cabin of Flight 1382, no one could have expected that a fiery confrontation was silently unfolding. A blonde woman, her gaze full of arrogance, stood before a black doctor with contempt that was not hidden in the slightest. Look at her, and then look at me. There's definitely some mistake. I've been a platinum member for 15 years. Her voice echoed, tearing through the tense atmosphere. But then, just a brief moment later, a strange silence spread, when the chief flight attendant, with a look of understanding, unexpectedly stood up for the doctor who had been the target of all those suspicious glances. No one in the cabin that day could have guessed that this seemingly small encounter would unfold into a miraculous story of compassion, growth, and silent miracles that could change the destiny of a small human being. Join me as we follow this extraordinary journey, where prejudices are challenged, hearts are healed, and opportunities for healing are illuminated. If you believe that kindness and determination can change the world, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel to start this emotional story with me. Let's begin. The atmosphere in the first-class cabin was as tense as a bowstring, with 58 pairs of eyes watching in awkward silence as Olivia Barnes's voice suddenly soared, nearly ripping through the recycled air on the plane. "I don't care what her little computer says," Olivia snapped, her perfectly manicured nails pointing directly at the flight attendant's tablet. "This must be a mistake. Look at her, and then look at me." Olivia's gaze quickly swept, full of disdain, toward Dr.
Inside, I've been a gold member with this airline for 10 years. She certainly doesn't qualify to sit here. Olivia.
Years of flying experience. He observed that
His professional smile didn't waver as he leaned in and lowered his voice, just enough for those nearby to hear. "Ma'am, I completely understand. If you'll please follow me, we'll sort this out and ensure you're satisfied." Elise's heart sank when she saw Daniel motion for Olivia to head toward the front cabin. The familiar sting of injustice flared in her chest, but she didn't allow herself to shed a tear in front of them. Not today. Not after everything she had endured to get here. What happened next would force all the passengers of Flight 5743 to reconsider their biases about power, privilege, and the quiet moments of justice that can suddenly arise. 3 hours earlier, Dr. Elise Carter hurriedly pulled her suitcase into the main terminal of Midwest International Airport. Her morning had started with a small disaster. The alarm clock hadn't gone off, and now she was rushing to catch her flight to Seattle. At 48 years old, Elise had mastered the art of maintaining a calm exterior despite inner turmoil. Her cream silk blouse showed no wrinkles under the perfectly tailored dark blue blazer. Her natural curls were carefully twisted into a crown-like knot, and only the slight wrinkle between her eyebrows betrayed her anxiety about the time. "Next, please," a female agent at the check-in counter called out. The name tag on her uniform read Monica. Elise stepped forward, a professional smile on her face. "Good morning. I'm checking in for Flight 5743 to Seattle." Monica's fingers quickly danced over the keyboard. "Dr. Carter, I see your name here. Please provide your identification." As Elise handed over her driver's license, she noticed Monica's quick but confused glance as she compared the photo with the woman standing before her. A familiar moment Elise had experienced countless times. The astonishment when a doctor turned out to be a woman of color. "Congratulations, Dr. Carter," Monica said, handing back the identification and boarding pass. You've been upgraded to first class today, seat 2A. Diamond members get priority like that." Monica smiled warmly. "Boarding will begin in 30 minutes at gate D15. Great news. Thanks, Monica." Elise folded the boarding pass into her passport pocket, feeling a little weight lift from her heart. The flight was nearly 5 hours long, and the comfort of first class would help her recharge for the important speech the next morning at the Global Pediatric Surgery Summit, the pinnacle of 15 years of research, featuring a new technique that shortened recovery time for pediatric brain surgery by 60%. On her way to the security check, Elise opened her phone to find a message from her daughter, Layla, a sophomore at Brown University. "Good luck, Mom. Go wow them. I wish I could be there to cheer you on. Love you." Elise smiled and quickly replied, "Thanks, sweetie. Focus on your studies. I'll FaceTime you after my speech. Love you more." She slipped the phone into her pocket, joining the TSA pre-check line, grateful for the little conveniences that saved time. Right behind her, a flustered man was struggling with his luggage while holding on to a teenage girl who had her eyes glued to her phone. "Emily, please help me out for 2 minutes," he pleaded, struggling with a laptop that almost slipped from his hands. Elise quickly caught the laptop. "Let me help," she said, holding it steady until the man got everything sorted. "Thank you." He sighed with relief, exhaustion clear on his face. "I'm Ethan, and this is my daughter, Emily." He pointed toward the girl who barely looked up from her screen. "Elise," she replied, offering a friendly smile. "Travel's stressful enough without needing an extra set of hands." Ethan chuckled sincerely. "That's true. I'm usually more organized than this, but today, it's been a disaster." His voice revealed deeper troubles than just the luggage. "Are you heading to Seattle too?" Elise asked as the crowd moved forward. "Yeah. Taking Emily to visit her mom?" Ethan lowered his voice. "We've been divorced. She moved there for work 2 years ago. This is Emily's first time seeing her mom since." Emily shot her dad a look sharp enough to cut glass. "I'm listening, Dad. This trip is for me, not you. You're just the delivery guy." Ethan flushed with embarrassment, but Elise noticed the flicker of sadness in his eyes before he forced a tight smile. "Right, Emily," he murmured. Elise knew all too well the delicate dance of broken families. She had walked through it herself 8 years ago. Elise had gone through her own divorce 8 years ago. As they moved toward the security check, she gently tilted her head and spoke softly to Ethan, with a firm but reassuring tone. "Things will get easier." Ethan nodded appreciatively, but the peaceful moment was quickly broken by a sharp voice from another line. Excuse me, this is the priority line. I'm a platinum member." Elise turned to see a woman in her 60s with carefully dyed blonde hair, dressed in expensive clothes, yelling at a young security officer. Her voice echoed throughout the security area, causing the passengers around to exchange awkward glances. "Ma'am, this is the TSA pre-check line, not the airline's priority service," the security officer patiently explained. "I spend a fortune with this airline every year. Do you know that?" The woman interrupted, her voice getting louder. "I've been flying first class since before you were born. I demand to speak to a manager." Elise and Ethan exchanged a look, a shared reaction of embarrassment for the woman. "Honestly," Ethan whispered, shaking his head. "How do people like her manage with real problems?" Elise whispered back. After completing the security process, Elise checked the flight display and realized she still had time to grab a coffee. She headed toward the nearest coffee shop and wasn't surprised to find the blonde woman from earlier now scolding a young barista over a cup of coffee. "I ordered soy milk. This is clearly cow's milk. Are you trying to poison me?" she shouted, slamming the cup down on the counter, spilling coffee everywhere. The barista, a young man with several piercings and an astonishingly patient expression, just nodded gently. "I'll remake it for you right away. I'm very sorry for the inconvenience." Elise waited until the woman had stormed off with her coffee before stepping up to the counter. "I really admire your patience," she said as she placed her order. The young man smiled tiredly. "Working here is like taking an advanced emotional control class. What can I get for you?" "I'll have a medium dark roast and any pastry you recommend," Elise replied. "We just baked some blueberry scones," he suggested, quickly grabbing one. "Perfect," Elise said, paying and leaving a generous tip. As she moved away from the counter, she caught sight of the blonde woman sitting near the boarding gate, talking loudly on her phone. "Of course, I had to speak up, Gerald. People just don't know how to serve properly anymore. It's not like the old days." Elise shook her head, finding a seat a few rows away and opening her laptop to go over her presentation one last time. The waiting area gradually filled as the departure time neared. She saw Ethan and Emily had also found seats opposite each other. Emily was still glued to her phone, while Ethan looked increasingly weary. He caught Elise's eye and gave her a weary smile, shrugging. An announcement came over the loudspeaker. "We would like to invite passengers needing special assistance, military personnel, and families with young children to board Flight 5743 to Seattle. Afterward, Diamond members, Platinum members, and first-class passengers may board." Elise gathered her things and stood up, making her way to the boarding area. As she did, she realized she was standing in line right behind the blonde woman, who was now eyeing her from head to toe, her gaze lingering especially on Elise's simple flat shoes. "Are you sure you're in the right line?" she asked, her tone full of suspicion. "This line is for Diamond members and first-class passengers." She adjusted her silk scarf with a flick of her wrist. Before Elise could respond, the gate agent spoke up. "We are now inviting Diamond Elite members and first-class passengers to board." Elise smiled politely, scanned her boarding pass, and heard the beep confirming it was accepted. "Have a pleasant flight, Dr. Carter," the gate agent said, giving her a friendly nod. The blonde woman froze for a moment, her face clearly surprised, before hastily swiping her boarding pass through the scanner with a frustrated frown. Elise let the small incident slide, walking quickly down the jet bridge into the airplane. She paid no attention to the petty prejudices of others. She had much more important things to focus on today. When she reached seat 2A, a perfect window seat, Elise stowed her carry-on luggage and settled in, enjoying the quiet moment before the long flight. Soon after, the blonde woman appeared, scanning the row numbers before stopping right next to Elise's seat. "Tch," she muttered with a displeased noise upon seeing the seat next to hers. She shot Elise another look before stuffing her expensive suitcase into the overhead compartment and plopping down into her seat with a huff, exhaling as though she had been deeply offended. Elise ignored her, continuing to review her presentation on her tablet, trying to tune out the obvious discomfort next to her. The remaining passengers continued filing into first class. An elegant, elderly man approached and sat down in the seat between the two women, giving both of them a polite nod. From the economy class, Elise saw Ethan and Emily making their way through the narrow aisle. Emily was still staring at her phone, while Ethan carried both suitcases, his shoulders sagging with fatigue. As they passed by, Ethan's eyes briefly met Elise's, and she responded with a soft, encouraging smile. The deep voice of the chief flight attendant came through the loudspeaker. "Welcome aboard Flight 5743 to Seattle. I'm Daniel Park, your chief flight attendant for today. The estimated flight time is about 4 hours and 50 minutes. We will be serving drinks before takeoff for our first-class passengers." Just a few minutes later, Daniel appeared in the first-class cabin, swiftly moving with a tray of water, juice, and champagne. In his 50s, the friendly glint in his eyes, framed by the small wrinkles at the corners, revealed his many years of experience. "What would you like to drink before takeoff?" Daniel asked as he reached Elise's row. "Champagne," Olivia Barnes replied curtly, not taking her eyes off the magazine in her hands. "Certainly, ma'am," Daniel replied politely, handing her the glass of sparkling wine. He turned to the elderly man sitting between the two women. "And what about you, sir?" "Just water, thank you," the elderly man answered in a voice with a slight foreign accent that Elise couldn't immediately place. And finally, Daniel turned to Elise with his unwavering professionalism. "And for you, Dr. Carter?" "I'll have orange juice, please," Elise said with a gentle smile, accepting the drink from him. At that moment, she could feel Olivia's sharp gaze on her, the woman scrutinizing every little movement she made. The plane began to fill up. Safety announcements were made, and Elise took the opportunity to close her eyes for a few seconds, mentally preparing herself for the long flight ahead. Suddenly, Olivia cleared her throat loudly next to her. Elise ignored it. Olivia tried again, this time clearing her throat even more forcefully, compelling Elise to turn toward her. "Are you okay?" Elise asked politely. "I'm Olivia Barnes," she introduced herself, as though her name was something everyone should know. "I fly this route twice a month, and I've never seen you in first class before." Her tone implied that Elise was out of place in a seat she seemed to think was reserved for a select few. "I don't fly to Seattle often," Elise responded shortly, then turned back to her tablet, hoping to end the conversation. But Olivia wasn't ready to drop it. "Business or pleasure?" she asked, pressing further. Elise hesitated, considering whether to ignore her again, but ultimately chose to answer politely. "Business. I have a speech at a conference." "Oh, what kind of conference?" Olivia asked, her tone dripping with skepticism, as if she couldn't believe someone like Elise could have anything important to do. Before Elise could answer, Daniel returned. "Miss Barnes, here are the extra pillows you requested." He smiled politely as he handed her the pillows, and Olivia immediately switched to a sweet, insincere tone. "You're always so attentive. I always ask to fly with you when I can." "It's my pleasure, ma'am," Daniel replied professionally, then gently reminded her, "We'll be taking off shortly. Please fasten your seatbelt and return your tray table to the upright position." After Daniel left, Olivia carefully arranged her pillows, then returned to the unfinished conversation. "So, what's this conference of yours about?" "A medical conference," Elise answered briefly, hoping to cut the conversation short. Olivia raised an eyebrow, her voice laced with disbelief. "Oh, are you a nurse?" The elderly man sitting between them shifted slightly, casting a quick glance at Elise, as though silently apologizing for Olivia's rude behavior. "I'm a neurosurgeon," Elise replied calmly. "I'll be presenting a new technique my team developed." The shock on Olivia's face was evident enough to make Elise pop in her earbuds, signaling the end of their unwanted conversation. The plane taxied down the runway and took off smoothly. Once they reached cruising altitude, Daniel and another flight attendant began serving lunch. Elise removed her earbuds as Daniel returned. "We have Mediterranean salad with grilled chicken or vegetarian pasta, Dr. Carter," Daniel said. "I'll have the salad, thank you," Elise replied. Olivia, engrossed in her phone, looked up sharply. "Do you know her?" Her voice was clearly skeptical, as though it was strange that someone would be so familiar with Elise. Daniel kept his professional smile. "We try to remember all our first-class passengers' names, Miss Barnes. And what will you be having today?" "Chicken, then. And a glass of Chardonnay, please," Olivia quickly replied. "Certainly, ma'am. And for you, sir?" Daniel turned to the elderly man. "Just pasta and a little red wine, please," the elderly man requested in a deep voice. "I'll bring your drinks right away," Daniel responded, then moved on to serve the other passengers. Soon after, Olivia leaned toward Elise, trying to talk over the elderly man. "So, you really are a doctor? A surgeon?" Elise nodded, maintaining her politeness but feeling a growing reluctance. "Yes, I've been in the field for 17 years. "How interesting," Olivia commented, her tone still laced with distrust. "So, what is this technique you're researching?" Olivia pressed, now seemingly genuinely curious. Elise hesitated for a moment before deciding to share. "It's a minimally invasive technique for removing certain types of brain tumors in children. The old method usually took a long time for kids to recover, which affected their cognitive development. Our technique reduces recovery time by about 60%, minimizing the negative impact." The elderly man sitting between them couldn't hold back his interest and turned to Elise. "That's amazing, doctor. I was a pediatrician for 40 years before retiring. The advancements you all are making are extraordinary." Elise smiled, the first genuine warmth she'd felt since boarding the flight. "Oh, you were a doctor too?" Olivia suddenly interrupted, her voice much more enthusiastic. "Where did you work?" "At Riverdale Children's Hospital, where I spent most of my career," the elderly man answered with a gentle smile. "How wonderful," Olivia exclaimed. "My grandson had heart surgery there when he was little. What a magical place." Elise silently noted the sudden shift in Olivia's attitude. She had immediately become friendly toward the elderly man because she now knew he was a doctor, while still holding doubts about Elise, a neurosurgeon. Elise had seen this behavior many times. People only recognize her abilities indirectly when someone they trust validates her. The meal service on the plane went smoothly. Elise used the opportunity to continue reviewing her presentation, enjoying the rare treat of a fresh salad, a rarity for airplane food. As she focused on her material, the plane suddenly jerked slightly. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain," the voice announced over the intercom. "We are currently experiencing light turbulence. Please return to your seats and fasten your seat belts until the situation stabilizes." The plane shook again, causing small yelps to echo throughout the cabin. Water glasses tilted and overhead compartments creaked. Olivia gripped her armrest tightly, her fingers turning white. "I hate turbulence," she muttered, as if speaking to no one in particular. Another violent shake made some passengers scream, the sound of crying children from economy mixed with the voices of their parents trying to calm them. "Is this normal?" Olivia asked the elderly man, as though he, being a pediatrician, would know all about aviation. "Perfectly normal," the elderly man responded in a calm, reassuring tone. "It's just like driving on a bumpy road." The turbulence lasted for nearly 20 minutes, and during that time Olivia's anxiety became more and more apparent. She closed her eyes, whispering silent prayers. Finally, as the plane stabilized, The captain announced that they had passed through the turbulence. Olivia let out a visible sigh of relief, nervously smoothing her hair. "That was awful," she said, her voice still shaky. "I fly all the time and I still can't get used to it." Elise, surprised by her own empathy, found herself wanting to comfort the woman who had been so dismissive of her earlier. Fear of flying is quite common. It affects about 20 to 30% of people, she said softly. Olivia briefly met Elise's gaze, her face briefly showing an unusual vulnerability, replacing the usual haughty expression. "You ever afraid of flying?" she asked, her voice hesitant. Elise was honest. "Not turbulence, but takeoff and landing sometimes make me anxious. The feeling of being completely helpless, having to trust someone else completely." Olivia's eyes briefly flashed with understanding. "Yeah, the feeling of helplessness," she whispered, as if realizing something about herself. Then, realizing she had revealed too much, she quickly regained her usual cold demeanor. "At least it's over now," Olivia concluded, adjusting her posture. Daniel Park soon reappeared in the aisle, checking on the passengers after the turbulence. "Is everyone okay?" he asked their row. "All good, thanks," Elise responded. "Could I please have another glass of wine?" Olivia spoke up, her tone now much less haughty than before. "Of course, Ms. Barnes." Daniel smiled, then quickly went to prepare the drink. Olivia took a small leather notebook from her bag and began writing furiously, as if the brief moment of weakness had never happened. The elderly man between them had fallen asleep, his head nodding gently. Elise took advantage of the peaceful moment to finish the final touches on her presentation, grateful for the quiet. As she was finishing the last few lines, there was a commotion from the economy cabin. "Why do we have to switch seats?" a young woman's voice cried, full of frustration. "We paid for these seats." Elise turned her head discreetly. She recognized Ethan standing in the aisle, while Emily sat stubbornly in her seat, arms crossed, a defiant look on her face. Daniel Park was trying to explain. "I'm sorry, but due to weight balance issues, we need to move your seats. We can arrange for you to sit in row 22, near the restroom." "But we won't be sitting together," Emily protested, her voice rising. Richard, his face flushed with embarrassment, tried to calm her down. "Emily, please, try to understand. They're doing their best." "It's not fair," Emily nearly screamed. Passengers around them started looking, some showing sympathy, others expressing irritation. Emily angrily pointed at the other passengers. "Why us? What about them?" Elise's heart tightened. Beneath Emily's rebellious exterior, she could clearly see the hurt of a child stuck in the middle of her parents' divorce. Without thinking, Elise pressed the call button for the flight attendant. When Daniel arrived, she gently said, "If needed, I'm happy to switch to row 22. I'm not in a rush to get off the plane." Daniel seemed surprised, his gaze filled with gratitude. "Thank you so much, Dr. Carter. But I can't ask a first-class passenger to move to economy." "It's fine," Elise smiled. "I've sat in economy hundreds of times." Daniel nodded. "Let me see what I can arrange." He turned back to discuss with Ethan and Emily. Ethan gave Elise a thankful look, but Emily still shook her head, refusing to move. Daniel returned, looking slightly awkward. "I'm sorry, but the young lady insists on staying. Thank you again for your kindness." "It's okay," Elise replied. "I hope they find another solution." Fortunately, another passenger volunteered to switch seats, and the situation was resolved. The rest of the flight was uneventful. Olivia busied herself writing in her notebook, the elderly man continued dozing, and Elise finished her presentation, knowing that tomorrow could change her career forever. As the plane made its descent, Elise could feel her heart start to race with the familiar mix of excitement and nerves. Tomorrow was the day she had been working toward for years. The Global Pediatric Surgery Summit was the culmination of everything she had fought for, and her presentation was going to change the lives of countless children. The plane touched down smoothly at Seattle International Airport. As the passengers slowly began to gather their things, Elise stood up, feeling the weight of the moment settle in her chest. "Welcome to Seattle," the flight attendant announced as the plane taxied to the gate. As she disembarked and entered the airport terminal, Elise couldn't help but notice how different the atmosphere was compared to the flight. The tension and discomfort of the flight had dissolved, replaced by a quiet anticipation for the days ahead. The moment she had been working toward for so long was finally within her grasp. Her phone buzzed, and she pulled it out to find a message from Dr. Marcus Whitaker, the organizer of the conference and her former mentor. "Elise, the hotel room is ready. If you can, we should review your presentation tonight at 7. The car will be waiting for you at baggage claim." Elise smiled at the message, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. Marcus had always been her biggest supporter, and she knew that his guidance would make all the difference in the final moments before the big day. She glanced around the bustling airport, seeing families, professionals, and travelers all hurrying to their destinations. Her eyes landed on a familiar face near baggage claim. It was Ethan, standing with Emily. They looked like they were waiting for someone. Emily was fidgeting, clearly uncomfortable, while Ethan kept his eyes trained on the crowds, clearly anxious. Elise walked over, her heels clicking against the polished floor. As soon as Ethan saw her, he smiled, relief evident on his face. "Dr. Carter, thank you again for offering to change seats earlier," he said sincerely. "Even though it wasn't necessary in the end, it was very kind of you." "Of course, Ethan," Elise replied with a warm smile. "I hope you and Emily had a safe trip." "Yeah, it was a bit of a rocky start, but we're here," he said, glancing at his daughter, who was still glued to her phone, her face unreadable. "Emily, how was the visit with your mom?" Elise asked gently, trying to break the tension. Emily gave a short shrug, still not looking up from her screen. "It was fine," she muttered, but her voice didn't match the nonchalant tone. Ethan sighed. "It's been a tough transition for her. It's not easy for any of us." Elise gave him an understanding nod, but before she could say anything else, the announcement came through the intercom. "Attention, Dr. Elise Carter. Please report to the information desk. Your car is waiting for you." "Well, it looks like I'm off to the hotel," Elise said with a smile. "It was good seeing you both again. Good luck with everything, Ethan. And Emily, I hope things settle down soon." "Thanks, Dr. Carter," Ethan said, a note of gratitude in his voice. "We really appreciate it." Emily gave a small nod, though her eyes remained on her phone. Elise could sense the conflict within her, the internal struggle of a child caught between two worlds, both unfamiliar and painful. As Elise walked toward the information desk, she couldn't help but think back to the moments she had witnessed during the flight. The harshness of the woman in first class, the way the elderly man had expressed admiration for her work, the quiet support she had received from Ethan. It was a reminder that everyone had their own struggles, their own battles that weren't always visible on the surface. At the desk, a driver greeted her and escorted her to the waiting car. She settled into the back seat, gazing out the window as the city of Seattle whizzed by. The drive was short, and soon she found herself standing in the lobby of the hotel, checking in for the night. The evening passed in a blur of final preparations. She reviewed her slides one last time, making sure everything was perfect. At 7, Marcus arrived in her room, and they went over the presentation together, fine-tuning the details. "You've done the hard work, Elise," Marcus said as they finished up. "Tomorrow is just a formality. Go and make the world see the impact of your research." Elise felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had worked tirelessly for this moment, and now she was ready. After Marcus left, she stood by the window for a few moments, gazing out at the city lights twinkling in the distance. Tomorrow would be the day that changed everything. The next morning, Elise woke up early, her heart pounding with anticipation. She slipped into her carefully chosen outfit, a professional yet stylish suit, and made her way to the convention center. The space was buzzing with excitement. As she entered the main hall, she saw familiar faces, colleagues, friends, mentors, all gathering for the day's events. But it wasn't just the excitement that filled the air. There was an undercurrent of something more, a recognition of the work that had been done and the lives it would change. Elise couldn't help but feel a sense of awe as she walked toward the stage for her presentation. The moment was finally here, and she was ready. The main hall was a marvel, with seats arranged in a semicircle around a central stage. The lights above were soft but bright enough to cast a warm glow across the room. The space was packed with experts, doctors, researchers, and students, all eager to hear about the latest advancements in pediatric neurosurgery. Elise took a deep breath as she walked up to the podium, her eyes scanning the audience. She saw familiar faces from the community, colleagues who had always supported her, as well as new ones, eager to hear what she had to say. There was also the weight of the strangers, the ones who might judge her based on her appearance, based on who they thought she was. She stepped up to the microphone, adjusted it slightly, and smiled. She was ready. "Ladies and gentlemen," Elise began, her voice steady and clear, "thank you for joining me today. It's an honor to be here among such esteemed colleagues and pioneers in the field. Today, I will be presenting a technique that my team and I have developed, which has the potential to revolutionize the way we approach pediatric brain surgery." As she spoke, Elise could feel the nerves fading away. She had rehearsed this moment in her mind countless times, and now, standing here, she was confident. This was her moment to show the world what she had been working for. Her slides changed smoothly, displaying images of brain scans, surgical diagrams, and before and after results of the new technique. She explained in detail how the method worked, a minimally invasive procedure that reduced recovery time for children after brain surgery by up to 60%, without compromising the quality of care or long-term outcomes. Throughout the presentation, Elise could see the reactions from the audience. There were nods of approval, curious glances, and even looks of surprise. She could tell that many were impressed by the results, but she didn't allow herself to focus on their reactions. She kept her eyes on the slides, her voice calm and assured. The technical details flowed easily from her, and she was beginning to feel like she was truly in control of the room. The hard work, the sleepless nights, the years of research, it had all led to this one moment. This was where everything she had worked for could make a real difference in the world. As she concluded the main portion of her presentation, Elise took a moment to pause. She looked out across the room, letting the silence settle for just a second. "I believe that this technique has the potential to change the lives of children all over the world. But it's not just about the surgery. It's about the future of these children and giving them a chance to grow, learn, and live without the long-term effects of brain surgery weighing them down. She allowed her words to sink in, and then she opened the floor for questions. The first few questions came from doctors in the audience, curious about the procedure's adaptability and its application in different types of tumors. Elise answered each question confidently, drawing on her years of research and practice to provide clear, concise responses. With each answer, she could feel the validation growing within her. Then, unexpectedly, a voice interrupted her, asking a question she hadn't anticipated. "Dr. Carter," came a woman's voice from the back. Elise recognized the tone immediately. It was Olivia Barnes. "I'm curious," Olivia continued, her voice now calm, but still carrying a hint of skepticism. "What makes your method better than the traditional approach? How can we be sure it's not just another overhyped solution?" Elise paused, taking a moment to compose herself. She knew that Olivia's question wasn't an attack, but more of an attempt to test her. It was a challenge, one that she was ready for. "Thank you for the question, Miss Barnes," Elise replied, keeping her voice steady. "What sets this method apart is the level of precision it offers. By using a minimally invasive approach, we can avoid unnecessary damage to surrounding tissue, reducing recovery time significantly. But, more importantly, we've seen that it doesn't compromise the long-term cognitive function of the child, which is something that traditional methods often struggle with." She paused again, making eye contact with Olivia, who seemed to be evaluating her every word. "These children are the ones who will benefit the most. They're not just patients, they're our future. And I believe that this technique offers them the best chance at not only surviving, but thriving." Olivia didn't respond immediately, but Elise could see the shift in her expression. The skepticism had softened, replaced by something that looked more like curiosity, even respect. The session continued smoothly after that, and Elise felt the room's energy change. By the time the final questions had been answered and the presentation came to a close, the audience was on its feet, applauding. Elise stood tall, allowing the applause to wash over her. It was a moment she had dreamed of for years, and now it was real. The validation, the recognition, it was everything she had worked for. As the applause died down, Marcus Whitaker made his way to the front of the room, a proud smile on his face. He extended his hand toward Elise. "You did it, Elise," he said with a knowing grin. "You've made a real difference." Elise shook his hand, feeling the weight of the moment settle in. She had done it. She had made her mark. After the presentation, Elise was surrounded by a sea of colleagues and researchers, all eager to speak with her about her groundbreaking work. The questions came fast and furious, ranging from technical inquiries to discussions about the potential applications of the technique. Elise answered each one with confidence, her mind sharp and focused. Amid the crowd, she spotted Ethan and Emily standing off to the side. Emily had her arms crossed, her expression still distant, but Ethan smiled at Elise, giving her a thumbs up. "Dr. Carter," he said, approaching with Emily in tow, "that was incredible. I could see how much effort you put into your work. It's amazing what you're doing for children like my daughter." Elise smiled warmly at Ethan, grateful for his support. "Thank you, Ethan. It means a lot to hear that." Emily, however, remained quiet, still glued to her phone. Elise could sense the tension in the air between them. A father trying to bridge the gap with his daughter, both of them still navigating the rough terrain of a broken family. "How's everything going, Emily?" Elise asked gently, trying to break the ice. Emily finally looked up from her screen, her eyes briefly meeting Elise's. "It's fine," she said, but there was a hint of irritation in her voice. "Everything's fine." Elise could tell that Emily wasn't ready to open up. She wasn't going to push her, but she did give the young girl an understanding smile. "If you ever want to talk, I'm here, okay?" Emily gave a small nod but didn't say anything more. Ethan sighed, glancing at his daughter. "She's still adjusting," he said quietly. "We're all trying to find our way through this." Elise nodded sympathetically. "I understand. Divorce can be really hard on everyone, especially the kids, but in time, things will get better." The conversation was interrupted by a voice calling Elise's name from across the room. It was Dr. Whitaker, beckoning her to join him for a post-presentation discussion. Elise gave Ethan and Emily an apologetic smile. "I'll be right back." "I need to speak with Dr. Whitaker," she said, then turned and walked toward him. As she approached, Marcus gave her a proud smile. "You were fantastic, Elise. Truly," he said, his voice warm with approval. "I've been getting messages from other hospitals already. They're interested in implementing your technique." Elise felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. "Thank you, Marcus. I couldn't have done it without your support all these years." "We've got more work to do," Marcus continued, his tone turning serious. "But this is the beginning of something big. You've just set the foundation for a new standard in pediatric neurosurgery." Elise nodded, feeling the weight of his words. This was only the beginning, but she was ready for whatever came next. She had spent her whole career preparing for this moment, and now she was on the brink of something that could change the lives of so many children. "Let's make sure we're ready for the next steps," Elise said, her voice firm with resolve. As the conversation continued, Elise felt a deep sense of purpose settle in her chest. She had come so far, from the woman on the plane to this moment of triumph. She had worked tirelessly for years, battling obstacles and biases, and now she was standing at the forefront of a revolution in pediatric surgery. After a brief discussion with Marcus, Elise made her way to the hotel lobby where she spotted Ethan and Emily waiting. Ethan gave her a small wave as she approached. "How's the day going?" Elise asked, trying to keep the mood light. "It's been a long one," Ethan replied, a tired smile on his face. "But we're getting through it. Emily's a little quieter than usual, but I think she's starting to realize how important your work is." Emily glanced up at Elise, her eyes softening just slightly. "You're really making a difference," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Elise smiled, touched by the sincerity in Emily's voice. "Thank you, Emily. That means a lot to me." As the evening wore on, Elise spent time with Ethan and Emily, offering them some advice and support. She could see that Emily was still struggling with her emotions, but there was a flicker of hope in her eyes, a recognition that things could get better, that there was a way forward. After a few more hours, the event wound down, and Elise made her way to her hotel room. She was exhausted, both mentally and physically, but the satisfaction of the day's accomplishments made it all worth it. She sat at her desk, reviewing her notes one final time before slipping into bed and drifting off to sleep. Tomorrow was another day, another step forward in her mission to help children like Sophia and countless others. The road ahead would be long, but Elise knew one thing for sure. She was ready for it. The next morning, Elise woke up early, the sunlight streaming through the curtains of her hotel room. She felt both a sense of anticipation and a weight in her chest. knowing that the next step in her journey was about to unfold. The conference would continue with additional sessions and networking opportunities, but today her focus was solely on the work that lay ahead, refining her technique, collaborating with other experts, and finding new ways to expand her research to help more children. As Elise prepared for the day, she ran over her notes one last time. Her mind was sharp, and there was a quiet confidence in her heart. She was ready to push forward, to take on the challenges that lay ahead with the same resolve she had demonstrated throughout her career. After a quick breakfast at the hotel, Elise headed back to the conference center. She entered the venue with a renewed sense of purpose, feeling the weight of the past few days settle into something more manageable. The hustle and bustle of the conference floor filled the air with a sense of excitement, and Elise couldn't help but feel invigorated by the conversations and ideas flowing around her. She met with several colleagues throughout the morning, discussing everything from research developments to future collaborations. Each interaction, whether casual or formal, reinforced her belief in the power of community and shared knowledge. Every expert, every researcher, and every doctor had a piece of the puzzle, and together they could create a future that was brighter and healthier for children everywhere. As lunchtime approached, Elise found a quiet corner of the venue to take a break. She pulled out her phone and saw a message from Ethan. "Dr. Carter, I wanted to thank you again for everything you've done for us. Emily is still a bit distant, but I can see she's starting to open up. We're taking things one step at a time. Your work today really inspired us, and we're grateful for your kindness." Elise smiled as she read the message. Ethan's words reminded her of why she did this work in the first place. It wasn't just about the research or the accolades. It was about making a difference in the lives of children and families. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Layla. "Mom, I heard you killed it at the conference. So proud of you. I'm so glad you're finally getting the recognition you deserve. I can't wait to see you again soon." Elise felt a rush of love for her daughter. Layla had been her rock throughout the years, and her support had meant everything to her. They hadn't seen each other in months, and Elise was eager for the moment when they could finally be together again. But for now, Elise was focused on the task at hand. She needed to finish her work here and make sure the next phase of her research continued to grow. The afternoon passed in a blur of meetings, discussions, and presentations. Elise spoke with more colleagues, listened to various talks, and exchanged ideas that would propel her work forward. She was starting to realize that the work she had done alone for so long could now be expanded and enhanced by the collective knowledge of others in the field. As the day wound down, Elise felt a sense of pride in everything she had accomplished. She had presented her groundbreaking work to the world, received validation from her peers, and made connections that would further her mission to improve pediatric neurosurgery. She had set the wheels in motion for something bigger, and there was no turning back. As the evening approached, Elise met with Marcus again. They went over some final details about her presentation and discussed the next steps in her research. "You've made a huge impact, Elise," Marcus said with a proud smile. "This is just the beginning. I know that your work will continue to evolve, and I look forward to seeing where it goes." Elise smiled, feeling both grateful and humbled by his words. "Thank you, Marcus. I couldn't have done this without your guidance all these years." Later that evening, Elise found herself back at the hotel, reflecting on the events of the day. She had come so far, from the woman who had struggled with self-doubt to the confident doctor standing at the forefront of a revolution in pediatric neurosurgery. The path ahead was still long, but Elise knew one thing for sure. She was ready for whatever came next. The next morning, she would return to her work with renewed passion and a clearer vision of the future. The world was waiting for the change she was about to bring. The following morning, Elise woke up with a sense of anticipation. The air in Seattle had a crisp chill, the kind that hinted at the beginning of a new season. She dressed in a tailored navy suit, the same one she had worn to her presentation the day before. The day ahead would be filled with discussions, further opportunities for collaboration, and potentially more groundbreaking research. She had already received several emails from colleagues and hospitals, all eager to start implementing the new surgical technique she had introduced. Elise was excited about the possibilities, but also mindful of the work that remained. There was still so much to do. As she arrived at the conference center, she couldn't help but think back to the moment she stood before the crowd, delivering her speech, feeling the weight of both responsibility and opportunity. It had been an emotional experience, but it also marked the beginning of something bigger than herself. The halls of the conference center were buzzing with activity as researchers and professionals from around the world discussed their latest innovations and discoveries. Elise joined several roundtable discussions where doctors and specialists shared their own experiences and insights. It was refreshing to hear how others were pushing the boundaries of their fields, and how they, too, were working to make a lasting impact. Throughout the day, Elise felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. It wasn't just about the accolades or recognition. It was about the lives that would be changed because of the work she and her colleagues were doing. Every small step they took, every new technique they developed, brought them closer to helping children live longer, healthier lives. Later that afternoon, Elise found herself in a quiet corner of the conference hall, reviewing some of her notes. She had been approached by several hospitals interested in collaborating on research projects, and the opportunities were endless. Yet, amid the excitement, she couldn't shake the feeling that something still wasn't quite finished. There was always more to do, more people to help, and more challenges to overcome. Her phone buzzed again, and she saw a message from Layla. "Mom, I miss you. I'm so proud of everything you've accomplished. Can't wait to see you soon. Love you." Elise felt a wave of warmth at her daughter's words. Layla had been her rock throughout the years, and her support meant everything to Elise. She replied quickly, "I miss you too, sweetheart. Can't wait to see you as well. Love you more." As Elise made her way to the closing reception that evening, she was greeted by familiar faces as well as new ones. She had made lasting connections, and the sense of camaraderie among her peers was palpable. It was a moment of celebration, but also a reminder of how far they had all come. The evening was filled with conversations about the future of pediatric neurosurgery and how they could continue to push the boundaries of what was possible. Elise listened intently, eager to learn from others and share her own experiences. As the night came to a close, Elise stepped outside the venue, breathing in the cool Seattle air. She could hear the hum of the city around her, the bustling energy of people who were all chasing something, much like she had been doing for years. She reflected on how far she had come. The woman who had once struggled with doubt and fear was now standing at the forefront of an incredible revolution in pediatric surgery. The journey had been long, but it had led her to this moment. She was proud of what she had accomplished, but she knew there was still so much more to do. Tomorrow, Elise would return to her work with renewed passion, ready to tackle the next challenge. But for tonight, she allowed herself a moment of peace, knowing that the future was bright and full of promise. The next morning, as Elise was packing her things to leave Seattle, she couldn't help but feel a sense of pride swelling in her chest. The conference had been a success beyond what she had imagined. Her research had sparked conversations, inspired new ideas, and opened doors for collaborations she had only dreamed of. The opportunity to share her work with so many brilliant minds had left her with a renewed sense of purpose. Yet, despite the incredible achievement, there was an underlying feeling of determination within her. The work she had done wasn't finished, it was only the beginning. She had laid the foundation, but now she had to build on it, extend it further, and make sure that the impact of her research would continue to grow for years to come. As Elise stepped into the airport shuttle to head to the airport, she reflected on her journey. It wasn't just about the accolades or the recognition. What truly mattered was the difference her work would make in the lives of children who needed it most. The thought that her technique could save lives, reduce recovery times, and offer hope to families who were struggling, that was what made all the sacrifices worth it. She arrived at the airport and checked in for her flight back home. While waiting at the gate, her phone buzzed again, and she saw a message from Marcus Whitaker. "Elise, I've had several hospitals already reach out to me about implementing your technique. This is going to spread quickly. You've done something truly remarkable." A smile crept across Elise's face as she read the message. It felt good to know that her work was being recognized and that it would be put into practice to help more children. The next few weeks would be filled with meetings, planning, and strategy, but she was ready for it. As she boarded the flight back to Atlanta, Elise thought about her daughter Layla, whom she hadn't seen in months. She couldn't wait to be reunited with her. The distance had been difficult, especially with everything that had been happening in her career. But Layla had always been her biggest supporter, and their reunion would be the perfect way to recharge after such an intense few days. Sitting by the window on the plane, Elise closed her eyes for a moment. The turbulence earlier in the flight had settled, and the plane was cruising smoothly. She could feel the hum of the engines beneath her, the sensation of weightlessness as the plane soared through the clouds. It felt like a metaphor for where she was in her life now. She had reached a place where her work was gaining momentum, and the sky was the limit. Her thoughts returned to the families she had met during the conference, especially Ethan and Emily. Elise couldn't stop thinking about the subtle changes in Emily's demeanor during their brief interactions. It was clear the young girl was struggling with the adjustments her family was going through, but there was also a flicker of hope in her eyes, a recognition that things could get better. Elise had always believed that every child deserved a chance at a healthy future. But she also knew that emotional and psychological well-being was just as important as physical health. She had seen firsthand how the stress and pain of medical treatments could affect children and their families. She was determined to continue her work to make sure that every child not only survived but thrived, emotionally and physically. As the plane descended into Atlanta, Elise felt a sense of calm. The familiar skyline of the city greeted her as the plane touched down. She knew there was still so much work ahead, but she also knew that she was ready for whatever came next. She had spent years working tirelessly to get to this point, and now it was time to see where this journey would take her. After collecting her bags and heading out of the airport, Elise took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of Atlanta's air. It was good to be home. Her thoughts shifted to Layla again, and she couldn't wait to hold her daughter in her arms and catch up on everything they had missed. As she made her way home, Elise felt the weight of the world's expectations on her shoulders, but she also felt a deep sense of peace. She had done something important. She had made a difference. And now she was ready to continue making an impact, one life at a time. And so, from a skeptical glance and a hurtful remark in that first-class cabin that day, an unexpected connection began to grow. An opportunity to save the future of an 8-year-old girl, and perhaps also to redeem the prejudices that had existed in the hearts of adults for many years. Dr. Simone Johnson didn't just change little Sophie's life with her skilled hands, but also planted a simple yet profound lesson in all of us. That sometimes the most valuable connections come from moments that seem like the worst. That kindness, patience, and faith in people are still the most miraculous things we can give one another. If you also believe that every act of kindness can create a miracle, please like this video to spread love, share this story with those who need hope, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next heartwarming stories. Thank you for joining me on this emotional journey. See you in the next stories.